Alright guys, as you can see we got our DTS back in the shop. Customer stated he had a leak. Thought it was transmission. Turns out to be water or coolant. And after examining it yesterday, we have to put a water pump on this piece. Yes. One job I prayed I'd never do. We're doing it today, everybody. Water pump sits on that side of the engine over here. Under all that, we got to take all of that apart to get to it. Labor time on this is 4.5 hours. That's tear down and put back. This video will not be 4.5 hours long, so don't worry about that. So we're going to go through here and we're going to get this done and get this guy back his car. One thing you might want to know is if your DTS has the under bumper valance, that over there, you want to pull that out. This car does not have a drain plug on the radiator, so you're going to have to just have a couple drain pans under it, and as you pull hoses, aim them towards the drain pans. That's the best I can tell you. GM thought it wasn't necessary to put a drain pan or drain plug on these radiators. So let's get started. Alright, so first thing we need to do is get our battery disconnected. I've already done that. So now we got to take our air box out. Should be fairly simple. Grab your 5/16 bit. And we got to take our hose off here. So we'll pull our hose off here, and then we also have to pull it off the throttle body. The reason you want your battery disconnected is because you have to pull the throttle body. The throttle body, if you just take it off and you unplug it, you do not need to do the relearn on it. Unhook your map sensor, set it to the side. We gotta pull our box up. So we gotta push and pull on our tube there, unplug it there, unplug it there. There's another clip over here, this one's missing. Just pick this whole thing up, slide it forward, pull it back. Alright, that opens this whole thing up. Alright, then we need to take our belt drive off, so you need a 1/4 inch ratchet for that. So we're going to take our ratchet down inside this hole right here, pull forward, take our belt off. Actually, let's put our belt back on for just a second. There we go. Try not to get your ratchet trapped. We got a couple D10s we got to take off over here for our tensioner. We got to pull our tensioner off. If you're able to access the water pump bolts before you pull this assembly off, it's probably a good idea to get them broke loose. We're going to take our studs out of our tensioner. We're going to pull the tensioner up, and then we're going to put the studs inside the tensioner so we don't lose them. And after I drop my D10 down inside the grill. And then we'll put our bolts back in. That way we don't lose them. We're just setting everything on our table as we tear it down. Alright, we need to pull our upper radiator hose. So I'll get our upper radiator hose pliers here. Yeah, there's coolant all over the side of the engine here where it looks like it's been spraying it outward, so we're definitely in the right direction here. Yeah, I don't like doing this job. I tried to look for a shortcut so I didn't have to take all this off. There isn't one. You have to take all this off. Okay, then we gotta pull our radiator hose. And this is gonna be, surprisingly, there should be more coolant coming out of there than that, so I'm kind of concerned. I've got to pull this hose here. This hose comes from the recovery tank, or from the reservoir tank. You got to pull this hose because it's attached to the side of the thermostat housing. This one here comes off. I was actually surprised that there wasn't much coming out of that one either. Okay, and then we got to pull this hose off completely. So that's these little attachments here on the engine block. That's what these are for. These should spin right up. You can get them to rotate like that. There we go. Got them little disc things up there on the side. There's one underneath the camera pod, so if you're moving around, I'm sorry about that. Got to get this disc right here moved. All they do is hold this down. So if you pick up on it while you turn it, it'll unthread it. And then you just gotta, I don't think there's any line or any coolant in it. So we're gonna take this piece here, we're gonna pick it up, scoot it out past the fuel system, like that. And we're gonna just kind of flop it over the side of the car. Now if you wanna unhook it from the reservoir tank, you can. There's nothing, I mean, it's probably a good idea to do that if you don't want to break the hose. So I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to unhook it from the coolant tank. I don't think we're going to get the big gusher till after I pull that lower radiator hose. There we go. Alright, we got our transfer tube off. That's what this is called. It's called a coolant transfer tube. Set that on our table. Alright, so we got that opened up. We've got to pull, let's see, we need to get our transmission cooler line out of the way. We need to pull our radiator hose up and away. Set that back there. We got to get this thermostat hose off of here. This is probably going to be where your coolant's going to come from if you get any. It's got a lock on it, so you want to be careful on this thing that you don't pull it so far back you engage the lock like I just did. Although it does make it easier to get off. You got to grab the hose and, well, let me see if I can get it with a screwdriver. We haven't even gotten to the good stuff yet. We're just trying to get all the cooling lines off of it so that we can get the cooling system drained. Here we go. Now we're starting to drip. Now there are some people that just take two bolts out of the thermostat housing. You can do that if you want to. There we go. Now we're draining. Just let it drain into the bucket. If you do it that way, you're having to change thermostat gasket. Now, if you're doing a thermostat on the car with the water pump, which a lot of people will do, that's always a good idea. You can do that. We're not doing that, so that's why I just pulled the hose off the housing. That way, one less gasket to screw with. So let's see, we got to pull the throttle body off next, so we got to pull this vacuum line. Oh God. Okay, so we got to pull the vacuum line. We've got to pull the fuel line. Fuel line's got a clamp on it, which we'll take care of the fuel line next. Put our clip over here under the hood. That is one of them wonderful, I don't like little things that we got to pull. So one thing that we want to do is we want to hit this Schrader valve. Make sure that we got all the fuel. Loose the cap down inside the engine. So I got to go get my retrievers to go get it. Go ahead and stand off to the side. You want to push the Schrader valve. Make sure you got all the line off the fuel rail, or all the pressure off the fuel rail. And that'll do it. Our fuel rail pressure has been released all over the side of this car. All right, so I'll be right back. I gotta go get some stuff. All right, so I got the fuel line unhooked. You gotta have a special tool to get it. This is what I used on mine. I think it was the big end on it. Scoops up under there. It's got little fingers on the bottom that you gotta press in, and then it slides right up. It's still, you're gonna hear the coolant drain for quite a while because there's a lot of it. So we need to get throttle body off next. So we need to pull our switch here. We need to get that unhooked. Get that unhooked, and we got to unplug our throttle body. It's just a push and pull like that. Move your fuel hose around about 1,000,000 times so you find the right spot for it. There's 4 10mm bolts in the front of this valve, this throttle body you got to get. So we got to get them broke loose. Your new gasket kit comes with a new gasket, and it's highly advisable that you change the gasket every time you pull this apart if you don't want it to leak. This car ran perfect before the repair, and it should run perfect after the repair. Otherwise, the repair wasn't done right. And set your try not to lose any of your hardware down inside the engine. There's a couple bolts down in here. Wonder what those go to. Go ahead and pull this out here. My luck, they were probably from a job we did that I didn't put the bolts back in something. Oh, the inside of this intake's crusty. Take your intake bolts, put them back in your holes. And then when you set this somewhere, set it flat like this. Set it flat. We don't have trunk access, I don't believe, so we're gonna have to probably store all of his parts in the back seat somewhere. All right, that's off. That releases this right here. We got, let's see, this bracket needs to come off because it's got the fuel rail attached to it. So we'll get in here and we'll pull this bolt right here. might be asking yourself why all this tear down is necessary. You want to pull this bolt right here because we got to get this fuel rail off the water line. Okay. Let's see, we gotta. Let's see, we should be okay with that. We shouldn't have to worry about that too much. Set that nut up here next to your clamp, or your retainer for your fuel line. Alright, so let's see, we got to pull this upper hose. So we got to find our pliers that we've been using. Probably on the table again. I got that PCV hose on order, and I'm hoping it's not discontinued, because if it's discontinued, we're going to have a problem. See, that's the problem that you have on these vehicles. Aren't really that old, so to have discontinued parts already, it really boggles my mind. This car right here, I almost don't want to work on it because of the fact that just about every single part that you get for it that's not a common wear item is discontinued. So, alright, so we got a, let's see, we got a clip down here we got to take off. Gotta pull that clip. That goes to wiring. We gotta look around here. We gotta pull this tube here. This is just a push and pull. If we can get it to come off. There we go. This is your purge system here. You don't want to break that. I'm gonna get that moved or disconnected. Set it somewhere. I don't know if you're going to be able to move it very far because it's got very limited travel because of that pipe. And then we got our purge system like we have on the SRX and all the other GMs that we work on. We got to unhook our EGR valve. You want to push down on the clip or on the plug, and then you can release the retainer. Alright, we got to pull, let's see, we got some bolts down here we got to get loose, but we got to pull that bracket that holds that up in there, that plug. Okay. A lot of these are 10 millimeters, so, you know, this is going to be a multiple part series, so hopefully you're on board for that. Just thought I'd mention that to you. Put the bolt back in the hole, if at all possible. If not, then just set it over here with your other hardware. Alright, we got to get our purge valve taken off. That's just a safety thing. You don't have to take it off. It's just recommended that you do, so that it doesn't get broke, because this whole side of this whole system here has to come off. It's just a good idea to take it off if you can. This is a shouldered bolt, so that should be easy to remember. Just pull our there we go. Make sure you put a new O-ring on your purge valve. There should be one in the kit. Put your shoulder bolt back in your intake. There's also a hose clamp here that goes on the top of the intake runner. You want to, before you pull this off, you want to loosen that clamp. Alright, so let's see, we got that line unhooked. Got all that undone. There's a line down here we got to unhook when we get closer to that part. We got a dipstick tube we got to remove here, or at least loosen it up. We don't have to take it out, we just have to pull it back. We got to pull our EGR valve next. So let me get the long extensions on that. I think that's also a 10 millimeter. Yep. Got to pull our EGR valve. Two bolts on the side here. Not very tight. There's one over here on this far side. Make sure you don't lose them. There's a heat shield that comes off. I don't know if you can see all of this. Yeah, you can see all that. There's a heat shield that comes off. And then you can pull the EGR valve up and out. See, you got to get this heat shield up and out of here. Set that up there. And then you got two more nuts down underneath that you got to get to, which are right here. And it might turn out to be studs on this one, which you're fine because you can go either way. GM likes to rotate between nuts and studs, so don't be surprised if the whole stud comes out. EGR valve comes up and out. You set it on the table over here. You have to pull the EGR valve because there's a bolt back here you got to get to. So let's see, we got all of our electrical out of the way, I do believe. Except for, we got to move this big jumbled pile of crap so we can get to our bolts. All right, we got some 13s down through here. I think they're 13s. Find out in a second. All right. Yep, they're 13s. You got 3 13s so far that I've seen. There might be more. Got to pull those out now. Ow. And let's see if they might need to be broke loose. We're not out to break our tools. Okay. Yep. So those need to be broke loose. And there's another one back over in here. Gotta get that one broke loose. Then we can zip them out. These are your mounting bolts. On these back ones, you want to be careful you don't get your socket trapped on one of the bolts and then all that good junk happens. This back one looks like it's in a coolant jacket, so you want to be kind of mindful of that. We'll see if it leaks in a minute. Shouldn't. It's got a keeper on it, so we're going to leave it in the intake, or in the assembly there. Get our socket back in here. Get the other one. That one's got a keeper on it too, so we want to just make sure that they're out of the side of the cylinder head. They've got keepers on them, leave them in their holes. Just make sure they're far enough back to where they don't come, they're not stuck inside the engine. Alright, we got to pull that hose. So we'll do that when we get back. Okay, we got you in a better view on this shot. Got a bunch of bolts we got to take out along the bottom here, so it's probably easier that you can actually see what we're doing here. We'll pull that belt back like that. You gotta get that out next. That's 10 millimeter. Gotta find our 10 millimeter here. Go ahead and take that loose. This gets the dipstick off the cooling system here. Take this and you want to slide that dipstick back and away. Leave the nut on. Just leave it back there like that. You'll be fine. Alright, we got to get this line off right here. So we got to get our line pliers. Pull this back. Get this to come back. Oh, we locked again, so I guess that's okay. We can unlock these pretty easy. Okay. Grab our screwdriver and just kind of pry that hose clamp back just a little bit there. Get it off the line. Oh, it's unsnapped, so we're going to have to grab it again and slide it back. There we go. That hose clamp out of the way. And we need to grab our hose here and get it freed up from the car. Gotta move this line out of the way so we get to it. Don't mind the sound of kids playing in the background. If you got a right angle pick, you can get in there and work that hose. We're not going to worry about pulling it completely off right now because we've got a couple other bolts we got to take out. Okay, so there's a bolt down in the back here we got to get. That's 13 millimeter. So we'll get back in here and we'll get this bolt. That's got to come out. That's 13. Right now. We do have to take the crossover tube off on the back. Let me show you that real quick. It's right back here. That's a 15, I believe, or a 13. Let's see if it's 13. Yeah, it's 13. Just take this bolt out back here. If you can get to it, you got a hood prop in the way. Let me get my regular 13 inch and we'll get that pulled loose. Got to pull this off back here because it's attached. Ugh. There we go. It's attached to the water system. I'm asking how that works. Alright, we got some bolts to get to under there. That's why I zoomed you in a little bit. There's 2 bolts down underneath by the steering rack we got to get. I can barely see them. You got to get these 2 bolts down here in the bottom. There's this lower one here, and then there's an upper one. They're 13s. I would have loved to get those, but let's see, we gotta get the, I guess this is why most people have multiples of wrenches. That way you can keep going. Alright, so anyhow, you got those 2 bolts down in there that I was messing with. If you see this bolt right here, it goes directly underneath it towards the back. There's 2 more. We gotta get those out. And then once those 2 are out, I think that's all of them. So I'm gonna grab those 2 and I'll be right back.